Hi guys, welcome to my video. In this video, I will show you how to implement one-to-one mapping, and I have the demo with the customer and a red table that has a one-to-one relationship. And firstly, what is the one-to-one relationship? It means that one record in a table is associated with one and only one record in another table. For example, each customer here has one address, and in the first design I add the column address ID in the customer table. That is the foreign keys associated with the address. But we have the better way to design one-to-one relationship is using share primary keys. It means that in a red table, I will add the customer ID. It's also the it is the primary key, and it also the foreign key associated with the customer. And now we go to the first step, create two entity mapping with the two table, customer and address independently. So you can see in the database that is the address and customer table, and it had this column. And now before to do that, I will remind you some configuration in the library. Like we have to add the library dependency related to Spring Data GPA like that. And in the application property file, we will add the data source like the springboot format. Okay, and now we have some bucket like controller, entity, repository, service, and view. So now we go to the first step. I will create the two entity, customer and address entity class. That is the maps with the database columns. Okay. For the entity class, we had the annotation entity that is really similar to the other demo in the previous video, but I just remind you something. So I will add the column in the customer table, and it is really the same name with the customer table. So when we add the annotation column, we need not to add the name of the column because it had the same name. And for the ID, the ID is the primary keys, and we also add the auto render rates for the ID later. So for example, in the day of birth field, we have to name the column here, and for the generated value, we have to add the identity. It means auto increment. We need not to insert the column ID for the customer, and generate get and set is similar. And now we will add the second entity address, and the column is to declare the same. And in this case, we remember that customer ID is the ID, and but that is not auto increment because that is also the foreign key it get from the customer table when we insert the data. So in this case, we should add the annotation ID, and we need not add the auto increment identity in the option. So now we add the get and set. Okay, I finished create two entity, and now we will create the relation field for one-to-one mapping using foreign key in JPA. And now for the customer table, I will declare the object address, and I will add the and in the address table, I will add the customer object. And now we go to the first one, customer table. I will add the one-to-one annotation, and it's mapped by the field customer in the address entity. And especially we have to add primary keys zone column here because we use the primary key like the zone column. And now we move to the address entity. It's also use the one-to-one annotation, but the annotation map ID, it means that it in the address we use the share primary key. So we have to add the annotation map ID for this one. And do remember that the column customer IDs are either primary key and it also the foreign key. So the join column is this column. Okay, that's all about the thing. And now you can see that in the one-to-one we have to add the fat type. We have two kind of fat type, lazy and eager, and you can look at into this to see the difference. And for the cascade type, the cascade type is mean that you can read more in the reference bay here, and for the on type it means that when we change or update in the parent object, the child object is also change or update, and similar to the delete. And for the lazy type it means that it fat get when we need it. And now we move to the next one. We will create the repository for the customer entity to query data. So now I will create the service class, service interface, because in this demo I will refactor to the service layer too. You can do the similar thing that we come from the customer in the controller to the repository. But in the video I also do with the service class. And for example, I will write the methods customer, and we also auto-write the repository customer. And now I also create the controller to for the REST API to call to the service layer to get on the customer for the first API endpoint. So this method it gets customer is called to the service layer to return list of customer. And now for that one I do the similar thing because I return the entity to the view to the JSON. But for the best practice you should convert the entity to the DTO class. Now you can see in the database it has one customer with its address. And now I will add the request mapping for the employee and the guest mapping for this method, and we run this again. So you can see that I'm missing the get and set method for the address field. So that is the reason it not show in the JSON. And now I will go to the another methods that is say a customer with its address. And now in this case I create the customer request. Is something like the request to send from the client, that is the object here, and I want to send it to first name, last name, address, city, something like that, and it's the argument to the say customer methods. Okay, and now to say this one, for we use the relation field in the address in the customer and customer interest with the one-to-one relationship. So in this case, when the first thing I will convert from the customer request to the customer entity. The request is the JSON is sent from the client, and I convert to the entity object. And similar to do with the address object. And now I also add the service. Okay, I also add the city, street, street, and to send it from the customer request. And the important thing here for the address, we have to set customer, we have to set address, and address we have to set customer. You have to set between each other, so it can say it's we can say it. And now you can see that, and after we prepare the data, now I will call the method save and indicate for this one I also return the customer object here, and in best practice we should create the view class to convert from the entity return to the view class. And now we count the say, and with the required body is customer request object, and we count the say methods in the service class. And now we run this again to see the magic happen. Okay, we can change this method. This is the bold methods, and we change to the bold methods, and the request is the flash object here. You can see there are something confusion here, because that is we get the error stack flow. It means that it's a loop and it never ends the loop. So in this case, we have to add the annotation ignore JSON to ignore the address, because for each customer had address had a customer, and we never to stop the loop here. So in this case, we have to ignore the JSON and property address. Okay, you can see that after here, when we port the data, it gets some good JSON here.